Shields up, Ironbreakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Battlefront 2. More specifically, we're going to be talking about its campaign. And before you guys run away, oh my god, spoilers! I'm not going to be talking about spoilers in the first half or so of the video. I will announce when we are getting into spoiler territory so that you guys can watch the video without getting spoiled of pretty much anything in the story. And then we'll get into specific parts of the story that I liked or didn't like. And, you know, we'll discuss some of those things because I really am interested in knowing other people's opinion that I've played through the campaign. I'm very interested in knowing what you guys think about that and how you guys feel about some of the things that I will tell you here, even if you haven't played through that campaign. Now, for those of you that are interested in watching me actually play through the whole thing and get my reactions on it, I did live stream it in its entirety yesterday on Twitch, and I will link the Twitch VOD on the comment section if you guys want to watch that. Eventually, I will also upload that Twitch VOD onto the YouTube gameplay channel that I mentioned a while back, and I will then put a link on the end cards of this video if you guys want to check that out. So, with all the loot boxes and crazy shit aside, which we already talked about that stuff to death, and you guys already know my standpoint on it, I fucking hate it, and I think it is a pretty big deterrent on what is otherwise a pretty good game in several aspects. Apart from all of that, how does the campaign actually feel? And it's like, it's kind of hard for me to talk about the campaign because I've watched all of the Star Wars movies, both the sequels and the prequels, and of course there are those movies that I like more, there are those that I like less, but overall I like all of the Star Wars movies, okay? I obviously have preference for the original trilogy because I don't think anything is ever going to beat that. But I still like some of the stuff in the prequels, and I know some people are gonna be like, oh my god, the prequels, heresy, etc. I don't think the prequels were that bad, okay? I don't think they were amazing or mind-blowing like the original trilogies. They weren't that bad. This is just to kind of like give you guys like my stance on Star Wars stuff, and I love Episode 7, but I think Rogue Squadron is actually it's not Rogue Squadron, it's Rogue One. Rogue One, I keep calling it Rogue Squadron. But I think Rogue One is actually one of the better. It's almost like original trilogy is the best. Rogue One comes after Episode 7 and then the prequels. But, you know, it all depends on what mood you are in and what movie you want to watch and so on and so forth. But anyway, regardless of that. So, what are my thoughts on the campaign? So first I'd like to talk from a gameplay standpoint before we actually get into my thoughts on the overall story. I think there are a lot of moments in the campaign that have some really cool set pieces. I can't go into very specifics to not spoil your experience of the game, but there's some pretty cool shit that happens throughout the campaign, and those set pieces were probably some of the most fun that I had throughout the whole thing, more so than experiencing the story itself, which should tell you a little bit about how I feel about the story. I think the story of the campaign is not great, and not only that, some of you guys may or may not be aware, but the story of Star Wars Battlefront 2 is actually Star Wars canon. Now, the story takes place during Episode 6 and what happens after Episode 6. So between Episode 6 and Episode 7. And you guys can see, oh my god, there's like room for so many amazing stories that you can talk about. You can talk about how Han Solo lost the Millennium Falcon. You can talk about what happened to Luke. You can talk about what happened with the Empire after they lost their second Death Star. Like, how did the First Order get formed? You can talk about all of these amazing things. Well, the campaign doesn't really do almost any of them. Yeah, I mean, there are things, some of the things that I mentioned in this quick list here, some of those things are touched upon during the campaign. A lot of them aren't, which I kind of feel is very unfortunate. And then there's another thing, which is the campaign features a lot of the canon characters, which you will encounter. Again, I'm not going to go into specifics because I don't know how spoilery people will find it if I was just tell you which characters you will encounter. Even though I know that they've been discussed at length, they've probably been announced in the materials, but some people do media blackouts, and I respect that. So, but basically what I want to tell you guys is that a lot of the canon characters that appeared in the original trilogies, they will feature in this campaign, and the problem I have with it is that some of them, their behavior does not make sense according to the characters. And you need to understand, like, I've watched the Star Wars movies more times than I can count. Star Wars movies, as a matter of fact, the original trilogy, is the reason why I speak English the way that I do. A lot of people sometimes think I'm American, but I'm actually Portuguese. A lot of it is because of Star Wars, because I would watch it and then I would read the subtitles, and I watched Star Wars thousands of times, without exaggerating, literally thousands of times. And it's like, I kind of feel like I've gotten to know those characters, even though I don't want to be arrogant enough to say, I know exactly what that character would do. I'm not going to say that, but I like to think that I know how certain characters would react in certain situations. And that kind of took me out of the immersion throughout the campaign when I see a certain character that I kind of feel I know a thing or two about, and I see him act in a certain way, and I'm just like, that character wouldn't do that? Come on, are you kidding me? That would never happen. At least that's the way that I kind of felt about it. So it's like you got these amazing set piece moments that I talked about in gameplay where you're just like doing all of these amazing things in the Star Wars universe and you feel really cool because it's like, yes, I'm actually living the adventure. It's amazing. And then there are other moments in gameplay that are not so cool when they just kind of have you doing like FedEx things, and they literally reduce parts of the campaign to just like, oh yeah, you are this character now, go here, go gather rumors about this thing. And you literally just walk around like a friggin' walking simulator and you hear what other people are saying, and that's a mission. And you're like, what? There's another mission where it's like, oh yeah, you need to go find these things, and you literally go to a place, you shoot a bunch of dudes, and then you look at some crates. And just to like add all of the cliches you could possibly ever add, there's 3 crates, and only one of the crates has the things that you have. So you go through and you're like, crate number 1, oh, not here. You go to the other one, I was like, I don't believe this is such a cliche. You go to the other one, you're like, not here. And then you go to the third one and wouldn't you know it, there it is, the thing that we were looking for. And I was like, oh God. And when we get to the spoiler part, you're going to understand why I'm so upset about that specific mission, because I'm going to get into that, but in here without spoiling stuff, I can't talk that much more about it. So again, there are great set pieces, and then there are some really poor moments. You almost wonder, like, are these the same people that worked on this moment of the campaign decided that it was a good idea to do this moment of the campaign? Because like, it seems like, sorry, it seems like over here they're doing this really cool thing, and then over here it's like we're back in 2010 of game development or something. Like, you know, it's kind of weird. There are moments like that. And then the other thing is that the story is told through the perspective of multiple characters. And at sometimes it can feel a little bit disjointed, because I think a lot of people expected you to just kind of like follow Iden Versio. And in my opinion, that would have been the better way of doing the campaign. But no, it actually swaps through the perspectives of different characters. And in a way that's cool. In other ways, I don't think it's that cool, because I would have rather them stick to something and do it really well, other than trying to do all of these other things with canonical characters of the Star Wars universe and then kind of have it fall flat on a lot of situations. And that's pretty much as I can talk about without getting into specifics. Again, at the end of the day, my main concern is like, just how much control did they have over this? You know, how much story were they actually able to tell? Actually, not even tell, how much story were they able to create, and how much story were they able to just tell? That's kind of where I ended up when I finished the campaign. I was very conflicted, because again, there were those really cool moments, and then there were those really bad ones, and then there were ones that I didn't really feel either way. Anyway, at this point, I want to get into spoiler territory, because I really want to get into the nitty-gritty of some of the things that happened in the campaign. So, if you want to back off right now, if you don't want to get exposed to spoilers of the campaign, because at some point you might want to experience it for yourself, then it's time for you to get out. Thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed the introduction that I did and my overall opinions and stuff, hit the like button, subscribe, all of that stuff, because now we're going to get into spoilers. Well, you've had enough time. If you haven't left by now, you're willing to deal with the spoilers. So, the story begins, you're Iden Versio, you're an Imperial agent, right? You're an Imperial elite agent. You're part of Inferno Squad, which I don't even know that much about because I don't read the comics. I only watch the movies, basically. So Inferno Squad, apparently this massive elite unit, not massive, this elite unit, this unit that is fantastic, right? These are like the elite of the Empire. And you start the game, you're infiltrating a rebel ship, so you're like a prisoner, and then you engineer an escape. And the whole point of you infiltrating that rebel ship is to sabotage the rebels some information that they're trying to decrypt about the stuff that happens on Endor in episode 6, about how they're setting up a trap for them in Endor at the shield generator place to make sure that they can keep the shields up and all that stuff. Anyone who's watched episode 6 will know exactly what I'm talking about. So she's there to sabotage that, and then shortly after that she goes on a mission because the shields were actually, the shields were destroyed. The shield generator was destroyed on episode 6. So she kind of goes into the planet to try to fix things, and then suddenly they look to the sky, Death Star explodes.
We should move carefully. We don't know how many rebels are out here.
No, we'll deal with them the same as the rest. Today we wipe out that scum once and for all.
Look alive, agents. We can grieve later. Right now, we need to move.
On you, Commander.
And I was just like, oh my God. You guys can probably see that moment if you watch the live stream that I did on my first impression of the campaign. That was the moment that I was like, oh my God, I can see the story that they're telling here. And there's so much potential for a really good story from this point of view. The story of what happens to the Empire, what happens to this elite unit that is just like, they just probably feel crushed after seeing the Death Star, the second Death Star exploding, right? And there's so much potential there for a story of like how they go into guerrilla tactics, fighting against the rebels, and along the way they could be, always showing the experience from the Empire side, right? There's potential for that story to be told. And them just like going through, okay, so then they went on these guerrilla missions to kind of strike back against the rebels to have their vengeance, and eventually you would learn how the First Order was formed throughout these missions and stuff like that. See, that would have probably been one of the best things that could have happened to that campaign, at least in my personal opinion, to like go from the destruction of the second Death Star to the forming of the First Order, through the vision of this elite Empire unit who is performing guerrilla operations against the rebels. Like, that story just sounds so amazing in my mind that I want that story. Well, guess what? That's not what happens. That's not what happens at all. So shortly after all the events at Endor and stuff, this elite unit, they leave and they receive information that, oh, we're beginning Operation Cinder and all of these other things that the Empire is doing. And eventually your character has a change of heart because she goes onto a planet where the Empire is basically like, we're going to destroy this whole planet, and it happens to be the character's homeworld. We're going to destroy this whole planet to ensure Operation Cinder's success. And the character's like, what? Aren't we evacuating anyone? They're like, no, they're expendable. We just go there and we're evacuating this one person, this one officer who is a pretty important person for the Empire. And so they just go there to evacuate her. And she receives orders to go into her homeworld, evacuate this one person while she watches the entirety of the civilization of her homeworld just getting ready to die. So this is the point where the character kind of turns. The character's like, this is not cool. I'm not okay with this. The Empire are being scumbags. And a lot of people kind of feel that this moment right here is like, oh, I don't believe that this character actually didn't know the things about the Empire. But you have to understand, the Empire is a propaganda machine, very much like the Nazis in a lot of ways. So it's almost like I can buy that. Okay, I can buy the character not knowing all of the atrocities committed by the Empire because she was too busy fighting for the Empire. She wasn't actually aware of all the nasty shit the Empire was doing. So like, I can buy that story. Like, that's not the part that bothers me. What bothers me is that she then surrenders to the rebels and she gives them all of the information about Operation Cinder and what the Empire is doing, all of these things, right? And so you'd expect, okay, but they're still Imperial spies and they slaughtered thousands of Rebel Alliance soldiers. As a matter of fact, you slaughter tons of Alliance soldiers during the operation on Endor, and you slaughter tons more when you are leaving Endor. You just slaughter tons of Alliance rebels, right? And so what happens at this point is what really just broke my immersion. So the character surrenders to the Rebel Alliance, and the person who goes and picks her up is Lando Calrissian, which is actually a character that I feel is very misportrayed in this game. So Lando Calrissian saves her, and this is the part that kind of just broke me, which is not saves her. He catches her because she surrenders, and in the span of like 5 minutes, she goes from being top elite Imperial agent imprisoned by the rebels to being on the cockpit of an X-Wing. What?
Hello, I'm General Lando Calrissian. You must be the Imperial defectors I've heard so much about.
We don't even know how to fly X-Wings.
It should be easy for Special Forces.
What's the alternative, Iden?
So, what's it going to be?
That was a little bit too soon. You know, it doesn't make sense because of how fast the transition is made. You guys are like, oh, but that's because how fast the transition made this game. I'm sure that was over the course of months. No. It was over the course of hours. You know, in terms of story, it was over the course of hours. Like, she surrenders, she's in a jail, she's getting interrogated by Lando Calrissian. Lando says, okay, come with me. They go with her, and he's like, I got 2 starfighters here for you. Let's go fight the Empire. It's like, there's no way you can justify that. Like, sure, maybe she would eventually fight for the rebels. I can accept that. I can accept that she would turn to the rebel side. But over the course of weeks, at least, or at least over the course of a couple of days, not in the course of hours. You know, the character is having like probably an existential crisis because she just saw her homeworld being destroyed by the faction that she was so fervently fighting for. You know, it's almost like the character her depth becomes paper thin when she goes from like killing rebel scum to fighting the Empire. That was probably the biggest thing that happened in that game that I was just like, I can't buy it. Like, I can buy a lot of things. I can't buy that. Okay? You have to sell it to me better. You have to give her some time to get over it. You have to give her time to process what just happened. I mean, she's an elite. She's the best of the best of the Empire. She goes from that to being on the cockpit of an X-Wing within the span of like an hour in the storyline. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's very confusing. It is extremely confusing. Either way, at that point, she goes on, she starts fighting the Empire. Okay, let's just accept, okay, she's been converted to the Rebel Alliance. All good. What happens afterwards? So then you get another mission shortly after this as you go and fight off the Empire and stuff. I'm not going to get into all the details of the story, just a couple of things that really bothered me. Then you get another mission, you're playing as Luke. You're playing as Luke, you're on this planet. I didn't even memorize planet Pelio? I don't know. You're on this planet, and Luke has apparently felt guided by the Force to that location. Luke gets there, fights off a couple of Imperials who also happen to be on the planet, and there he finds one of the friends of Iden, who is Del Meeko. And that friend has been like stuck by these insects. He's like stuck in ember. So here's where things get really weird. Luke frees him, even though he just slaughtered God knows how many Imperial stormtroopers. As a matter of fact, as Luke was freeing him, I was just like, oh, by the way, I killed all of your friends back there. That happened. I think even Luke mentions it. I think Del Meeko's like, oh, I guess that lightsaber is how you negotiated your way through my friends, right? And he's like, yep. There's a little dialogue. So there's like, it begins to be a little bit weird. But you're like, okay, I can buy Luke helping out an Imperial who is like stuck and he's harmless. Luke's just not gonna slaughter the guy. Luke might abandon him there, potentially. I could see Luke abandoning him there. I don't see Luke just outright slaughtering Del Meeko. Anyway, Luke frees him. After that, something happens. Dude has to throw a grenade to kind of save both of them because there's insects kind of. Luke's like, no, don't throw the grenade. Everything explodes, they both fall. Luke obviously lands on his feet, the other guy lands on his face. But after that, Luke goes like, okay, looks like we need each other's help to get out of here. And I'm like, what? Why do I need his help? He's a goddamn Imperial. I don't need his help for nothing. And then Luke hands him a blaster.
I've heard 100 stories about the Jedi. They terrified me as a boy on Coruscant, but you...
Come on. We need to work together if we're gonna get out of here.
Within 5 minutes of meeting this Imperial dude, who's actually a member of Infernal Squad, like elite fucking Imperial operative, hands him a blaster, and then just walks in front of him. Like literally, you have to walk in front of him. So it's like you hand him a blaster and you turn your back to him and you carry on. And I'm just like, no, I can buy Luke saving his life. I can buy that. I can buy even Luke wanting his help. I can buy that to some extent. What I can't buy is Luke handing him a blaster. Never happened. Never would have happened. Completely and utterly impossible. I don't believe it. I just... Is like, I don't buy that. That's something I don't see the character of Luke Skywalker doing. So these I think were the two moments that really irked me. Then let's talk about that mission that really pissed me off and why it pissed me off so much. The FedEx mission pissed me off so much because it was featuring my favorite Star Wars character of all time. Those of you who do not know, my favorite Star Wars character is Han Solo. As a matter of fact, when I played the MMO, The Old Republic, I played as a smuggler, and I loved the storyline of the smuggler. As a matter of fact, if you've never played that, it's worth it alone just for the smuggler storyline. It was amazing. I loved it. It's a fantastic storyline. I mean, the game itself, kind of lackluster, but the story of the smuggler, really, really cool. So I like Han Solo. And they put me on this mission with Han Solo. Han Solo has a beard, which I'm like, oh, cool, Han Solo with a beard, yeah. And then the mission is just like, oh yeah, walk around this bar, hear the rumors.
Roddy, good to see you. Listen, pal, I'm looking for a friend named Haldora. You know him?
After you left me stranded during the Zerka job? Not a chance.
Come on, it all worked out. It must have, because here you are.
When I was done with that mission, I literally said this could and should have been a cutscene instead of having me just walk around the bar talking to people. Like what, you're trying to show me that the game has great graphics? I already know this. You don't need to show it to me. So I don't know what the point was of that mission. Either way, after that, that's the other mission that you go into where you're killing a bunch of stormtroopers and then you're looking for some data that some guy stashed in the middle of the forest. And the data happens to be in boxes. And there were 3 boxes. And you go, ha, not here. Not here either. There it is on the 3rd box. And I was like, oh God. Arguably though, at the end of that mission, I got to fly the Millennium Falcon, which is my favorite starship of all time.
Inferno Squad, form up on me. Enemy starfighter headed for General Solo.
I see him. Proton torpedoes are ready. Excessive, but effective.
And I got to fight against a light Star Destroyer, whatever it was, one of the smaller Star Destroyer looking ships. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. Again, I think I had the most fun in the campaign whenever I was flying, whenever I was in the flying spaceship part. As a matter of fact, one of the set pieces that I was telling you guys earlier during the non-spoiler section was actually when Iden takes a fucking TIE fighter into a rebel starship. Out of my way!
Good shot.
Like, that was such a cool moment. She's just like, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna go into that star. She goes in there into the friggin' hangar and just like starts taking out X-Wings, and you're just like, fuck yeah. And then she comes out of the fucking TIE fighter, starts killing rebel scum, and I was like, god damn, it's so good. See, that's the potential that the story had. That was just like one of the best moments. That is the best moment in that campaign, period. That right there. When Iden goes into the fucking starfighter of the friggin' rebels, just like brutal. I loved it. But then there are all these other moments that are dumb. So like, I didn't like the Han Solo mission, except the part where I was flying the Millennium Falcon. That part was cool. Also, the character that is hanging out with Han Solo in that mission, just like the most dumb exposition and the dumbest fucking character I've ever seen. He's just a bad character. They try to portray this guy as some kind of comic relief, and it's just bad. It's just terrible. And then the other thing that upset me was eventually you get to play as Lando Calrissian as well. And they paint a picture of Lando Calrissian that has nothing to do with the Lando Calrissian idea that I personally have. I could be completely wrong. But basically they make Lando Calrissian an even more exaggerated version of Han Solo. As in, like, this is a guy who leaves everything to chance. He doesn't give a fuck.
Lava pump operating at 200%. Overflow imminent.
Problem solved.
We're gonna die. Which is kind of dumb if you take into consideration that basically Lando had become this person who was very responsible for his people during the scene in The Empire Strikes Back, where he's basically forced to make a deal with the Empire in order to secure the safety of his people. So this is a leader. This is someone, he's a general. He is someone who takes everything into account. Like, at least I like to think that Lando is a character that actually thinks things through. Sure, during the movies, they have a couple of scenes where he goes like, oh, I think we'll fit through there. And then just like you see the radar dish on the friggin' Millennium Falcon just get shot off. You know, there's that scene, of course. But it's like, that shouldn't define Lando as a character. He doesn't get to be a general because he takes all of these chances. And that's exactly how they portray him in the game. He's just like this complete, don't give a fuck. His mission is to go into a factory to steal weapons from the Empire. He goes in there and just like, ah, fuck it. I'm just gonna flood this whole factory with lava. I don't care. He just doesn't give a fuck. And then as he's leaving, he's like, well, we might die, but I don't fucking care. He's like, oh, I'm gonna press this button. Oh, that didn't do it. I'm gonna press that button. Oh, that didn't do it. As a matter of fact, I even anticipated, I'm like, oh, I get it. The way that you're developing Lando Calrissian, next thing he's gonna do is he's gonna shoot at the console. So I start shooting at the console before the prompt even shows up telling you, oh, now just shoot the thing. And I was like, yep, that was so predictable.
That didn't work. Maybe it's this button. For this.
Yep, I called it. You notice how I started shooting before it highlighted? And it was very disappointing because, again, that is not the way I see Lando Calrissian. That is not the way, I mean, that's kind of like Han Solo. That's Han Solo's thing. Han Solo is the crazy guy who doesn't really think shit through all that much and just kind of goes in and does. Lando Calrissian is a much more calculus character. Again, this is my opinion, I could be completely wrong, and this was obviously a story that was approved by Disney, so clearly Disney also thinks Lando Calrissian is a fucking clown. Which, I mean, Lando Calrissian is not even my favorite character in the Star Wars universe, not even close, but I have a very different idea of Lando Calrissian than how they paint him in this particular story, which is just like, it's mind-boggling. But yeah, then at the end you have this dream sequence where Kylo Ren's extracting information from Del Meeko, and it's kind of weird because it's apparently about an item that Luke picks up, because Luke picks up this specific item during the campaign.
What is that?
I'd like to keep this compass, if you don't mind.
My mission is to destroy this place. Why would I let you do that?
Because I asked. Thank you.
When you go into the Empire's observatory or whatever. And again, it's a weird exchange because Luke picks up this item. He's like, I'd like to keep this compass if you don't mind, to Miko. And Miko has orders to destroy the whole thing. And he's like, why would I let you keep it? And he's like, because I asked. And that's it. That's the exchange. You know, Empire's elite operative just lets Jedi Knight take random Empire item from a cache that he was sent to destroy. It's weird. It's just weird. There's a lot of moments that just completely take you out of the story because you're just like, this would never happen. Never. In 1,000 years, this would never happen. And again, I still feel the story could have been much better if it was just portrayed from the point of Iden Versio being an elite Imperial operative and eventually link up with the First Order. That would have made a lot more sense. Maybe even have Iden Versio sacrifice herself so that the First Order could exist or something along those lines. That would have been a better storyline, in my personal opinion. But I don't know. How do you guys feel about this? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you all very much for watching. If you are new here, subscribe, hit the bell icon so that you always receive notifications. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys in the next one.